A very good late afternoon, early evening. I can see everyone is exhausted. Essentially, this has been my, the IT BPO industry has been my passion for the last 20 years. Having worked with all the big legends of this industry when they didn't know outsourcing, and we as client didn't know, so we learned together, and that's what I've done globally over the last 20 years. My last stint was the chairman and CEO of Accenture, where I was able to grow the business from 60,000 people to 160 and more than 4 times the revenue in domestic market in India, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. And I was an entrepreneur in Accenture because for doing something like that, you have to be. But I'm now back into being an entrepreneur where I have things under my control completely. Really speaking, I think what I'm going to do today is give you a very quick presentation. In my view, this topic is about investing in India. And everyone knows about Flipkart, the Snapdeal, and all these consumer stories. India right now with 1.3 billion people is definitely a consumer story. I mean, right now, anyone who probably comes into this market to invest will invest, in my view, only on B2C at this point. And as far as I'm concerned, I really do not know how to invest in B2C at all. I mean, this is a game that I don't understand at all because I don't have expertise in it. I'm not a retail guy. I'm not a consumer guy. And, it's a bet that even the most, intelligent, smart financial guys also really are not able to make. I think now this game of these unicorns has become more of a financial instrument rather than really a game of startup. So in my view, it's pretty crazy at this point. I think what I'm really excited about is what I've been doing for the last 20 years. And Subhash has also done that in his life, is work with enterprises across the globe. And so I think the expertise that almost every one of us who has worked in this industry over the last 20 years has developed is a very significant knowledge about how technology can transform the biggest enterprises of this world. And so that is something that we know extremely very, very well. And today, with what's happening, for example, Uber, I mean, it's not a transportation business, it's a technology company. Airbnb, it's not a hotel business, it's a technology company. And I think this is not just 2 different examples. Right now, you can walk into the Dow Chemicals, you can walk into Coca-Cola, Pepsi, you can walk into Walmart, everyone accepts the fact that their business is being disrupted. And if they don't embrace the disruption, if they do not right now participate with these small companies that are called startups, but they respect them a lot now, if we don't participate with them to really guide their own disruption, their business will be disrupted, fine? So there is a very, very, very keen interest in working with the startup community. Very keen interest. So one of the things that I was able to do in Accenture, because I was a entrepreneur, is I had started working with startups even in Accenture. And at that time when I started, really, it wasn't something that I wanted to advertise within Accenture. I had one senior manager and one partner level person doing that for me. Because I say, the global chairman CEO will say that startups, small companies, and Accenture doesn't work with those. But luckily, so the CTO eventually said, guys, we need to work with startups. I mean, that was a serious thing. But by the time, we'd already got some traction with clients globally wanting to do things with startups. And by the time I left Accenture, we had 15 global clients doing significant stuff with startups in India itself, fine. And the only thing is that I could not invest in those startups. And now, my next, passion is to be able to, from the fund, to be invest in those kind of startups. So my thing is about investing in B2B, not B2C. And at this point, the enterprise market is not really ready in India. So if I'm thinking of investing in a B2B startup that the market is India, it's going to be a long haul. So, but there is a lot of good startup ideas in India on B2B. There's a lot that I've worked and seen in Singapore, a lot in Japan, a lot in Israel, a lot in London. a lot in Germany with the IoTs and things like that, a lot in the US. So essentially be able to kind of work with startups in these countries and where the market predominantly is the US. And I also believe that one of the founding team members has to be in the client market. You can't really do this thing sitting outside of India. Okay. So that's the basic thesis. But let me just take you through where my excitement comes from. Again, doesn't matter which country we talk about, significant amount of transformation is happening because of innovation, startups, and a lot of disruption is happening. I look at the fact that when we talk about Uber and Airbnb, this is exactly what's happening. Businesses that were nothing to do with technology are going to become all technology based. So I would say about $1.5 trillion every year is being added to the opportunity what technology can address because of this. And again, there's a count, and I think this count is probably very conservative in terms of the opportunity for any of the B2B guys to address. Now, this is the technology vision. I should have put down credit over here, Accenture technology vision. So Accenture publishes this every year. So I just tried to kind of summarize this from 2013 to 16. I guess the gist of this technology vision is the fact that you're seeing a significant amount of automation that is being happening. So right now, for example, Accenture, and this is all public, whatever I'm saying, so that's not, is working with a company called IPsoft, which really is developing a call center agent. And I think in a year to 2 years' time, it will be of the same quality as a human being in terms of the interaction. But just look at it, that will be 10 times more responsive and intelligent than even a human being. Because even that agent will be able to see from a camera and really look at your eye retina as a customer and figure out what mood you're in. Are you aggravated? Are you, so. And it will have all the information available, all kind of analytics available on demand, when that person is dealing with you. So really, the entire call center stuff is going to be, under threat because of that. Look at IBM Watson. I mean, the big four companies are feeding audit data to IBM Watson. And so IBM Watson is being taught how to do audits. I mean, can you imagine the volume of data? I mean, it's impossible for any human being to do it. I mean, that's what Watson is learning right now to do it. So again, if you look at it, I mean, whether it's IBM, whether it's Infosys, BPO, whether it's Accenture, about 10% of all BPO jobs were automated by using something similar to IBM Watson or Blue Prism or Automate Anywhere and things like that. 10%, really. And essentially, the finance and accounting, which is a very, very significant part of most BPO, is very, very automatable. And that's happening right now. So really, I mean, the thing is that software bots are really replacing human beings right now. If you look at the data, supply chain is extremely important. But I think what the new thing is that the data supply chain has become very, very important. When people are designing anything right now, they will be designing for data, for analytics. Essentially, so really any of your design, any of your technology design should be able to spit out data at each and every point. You may not be using it right now, but you never know where in the future you want to use that stuff. And again, it's about how the velocity of that data. So, that thing is really becoming extremely important when people are designing product, designing this. Again, if you look at it, enterprises are becoming very intelligent, it's becoming very platform-based. And even for doctors, I know even doctors in India right now are being taught and getting licensed on robotics. So they are actually now doing operations in India as we speak, whereby it's basically augmented reality in that sense. And again, obviously when you look at the cloud, the apps, all of that stuff, that is happening. Every business has to become more digital. I think in the middle, we talk about digital trust, active defense, architecture resilience. I mean, the security is becoming extremely, extremely, important right now, because the apps have to talk. I mean, the data has to be transmitted, and there has to be a trust between those apps. Those apps don't belong to one entity; they belong to multiple entities, and there has to be a trust. So I think the entire area of how you get authenticated and security is extremely important right now. Again, I'll skip these slides, but these were just more detailed slides of what I just talked about. Also, I think when you're dealing with B2C, stop thinking about verticals or industry verticals. I think right now, when people are thinking about whether it's Airbnb or Uber, it's about thinking what experience you want to give to your consumer, and that's what it is right now. So when we talk about Tesla, when we talk about Google and Apple coming with a car, I mean, they're not automotive companies. I think people are right now focusing on what part of the consumer experience they want to get involved in as a business. So it's about shopping. Think about shopping. Think about producing, learning, staying healthy, traveling, and paying, and not in terms of retail or travel industry and so on and so forth. Again, on B2B, things are becoming a lot more smart, right from factories to cities itself. Just give you an idea about the startup ecosystem. And my belief is that, especially when you're dealing with B2B, very big challenge is that no one B2B startup company can really be able to come up and scale a solution with an enterprise without having a certain ecosystem to work with. And that's what needs to be built in India. I mean, US with over 50,000 kind of tech-based startups, UK about 10,000, Israel, and then India over 5,000, Canada. I mean, these are the 5 biggest hubs of startups globally, not even Japan and not even Singapore. And again, China doesn't appear over here. I'm sure China has a lot more startups than here. But China market is something that none of us as startups are able to service the China market, and none of the China startups are really interested in going out and serving the global market. But I think one of the things that is extremely important right now, whether we are a country, whether we are a city, whether we are a organization like NASSCOM, or whether we are a university, I think is that everyone should form an open innovation platform. Because that, in my view, really is a must right now in every company, in every organization. Because this is a very good way of opening up your innovation. Innovation is not going to happen in government organizations by themselves. I mean, they really need to be open so that startups can come in, angels can come in, academicians can get involved in it. So this ecosystem is extremely important. I mean, this is just just a quick overview of the fact that this is the digital platform, and the industry innovation platform should involve all of them. I think there is a significant interest right now across Indian companies and across global companies to be able to get involved with startups. Now, just look at how industries are getting unbundled. I mean, it'll be interesting for some of you to kind of see how the unbundling is happening in the retail industry, in the health industry, in the banking industry, you name it. Everywhere it's happening. If you look at Paytm right now, Paytm is getting involved almost everywhere. In fact, the State Bank of India chairman basically does acknowledge, saying that, I accept Paytm is becoming a parallel bank. And so, for her, and for every bank right now, you go and talk to the CEO of any bank in India, really speaking, the entire top management right now, it is not about the core banking business. It's about how do we right now get onto the next digital phase of banking. That is what the discussion is totally centered on right now. And I think what is happening in fintech in India is actually the most advanced anywhere in the world. In fact, the digital banking solution that Accenture globally developed, the first rollout was with State Bank of India. First rollout globally. Fine. This is how I think how. And also, if you look at it in the media and entertainment, we had this solution which actually, you can see things on your mobile phone and other things called Hotstar in Star. And so that, was a state-of-art solution. And obviously, with the kind of users we can get, especially it was launched when there was a cricket IPL or one of the World Cup stuff. And so the maximum number of users of that particular system is in India. I think that way, if you look at it, India is becoming, at least from a consumer perspective, is becoming really the hotbed for adoption of digital technology. So that way, I think, if you look at it, there is a very, very significant scope, not just in the consumer market, but also in the B2B market at some point. So this is just some, a table of the top Indian startups last year. If you look at it, consumer, e-commerce obviously dominates, the marketplaces dominate the startup scene in India. Health tech is also significant. But right now, health tech, again, is all based pretty much in the consumer market. But I think there is a very significant opportunity for us to get into the B2B on the health tech as well. SaaS, the platforms, which is very, very essential for the digital world. Fintech, I think some very, very good leaders are there in fintech. Opportunities in India, I won't bore you with it, but definitely the demographic dividend looks very good, even versus China. Middle class, I know people have been talking about a great and vibrant middle class in India for the last 20 years. And I think, but I really believe that the Indian middle class will probably be ready and compete with the others globally probably in the next 5 years. The penetration of goods and services is very minimal in India. And I think right now with the FDI and some of the tax regime, the PSU divesting land acquisition with the GST coming in, I think the confidence of other investors in India will grow. I think India obviously has been behind China in terms of reforms and things like that by at least 10 years, if not more. So there is a significant up that is expected in GDP, like the China GDP growth that happened years ago. And with I think some of the cost dynamics that exist in manufacturing also, I think India does have a shot at being a manufacturing hub. Ease of doing business, very difficult. I know that Modi ji wants us to be in 50 when we are in the 130 or 140 range. The fact is, out of 130 parameters on ease of doing business, about 80 of them are state control and 50 of them are center control. And center control also by multiple entities, multiple ministries, by the way. So I don't know what kind of magic, what kind of God will come to enable us to do the ease of doing business well. The only example I can think of, it was much smaller, is when in 1991, when the reforms were announced for the IT industry and the single point of window clearance like the STPI was established with good bureaucrats and with good people, that really did the trick, by the way. So I think something like that hopefully happens for ease of doing business as well. Closing down companies, it's an issue across most countries in the world. And the vibrant startup ecosystem doesn't really exist in India, where you have investors right from C to A to B, series A, B, and C. Exits is an extremely, extremely difficult thing to do. People should realize that when you're trying to promise 25% IRR, in 6 years' time, you have to really quadruple your bucket of investment. And when you think that 2-3 companies will just go down zero, and 2-3 companies will be flat the same, basically, you're really looking at a significant up on the other companies, by the way. And India has been one of the worst, it has been the worst private equity and venture capital market in the last few years, the worst in terms of return. And the rupee depreciation also doesn't really help. I think those are some of the big things that are an issue. Now, this is my last slide. If you look at it, I'm sure you guys remember Pepper Tap. Great company, great scale, but I think the founders were intelligent enough to understand, we can go and burn the last dollar of our investors, but it is not really going to help them go beyond. So they closed down. Very, very difficult business. Most of the consumer business, as you know, is being funded right now by investors' money. How long? Don't know. Delivery King, again, closed down. Town Rush, same thing, logistics and delivery. Lumos, IoT, home automation. These guys were guys who just founded these things straight from college. Good idea, but at the same time, I've seen this before, but at the same time, I don't think so. The Indian public right now is willing to invest in technology. Talent pad hiring. Now the thing is that if you look at the Paper Tap, or you look at Delivery King, if you look at Dazo, for example, or you look at Talent Pad, you had VC. Helion Ventures. You had the Google India MD and Amazon India, MD, Freecharge CEO do the Dazo stuff. So good people have been there, but really speaking, we are all enterprise people. I don't think so. We should be considered as experts in terms of being able to know the consumer market. I think the road for the consumer stuff has been very, very difficult. So we always think about the unicorns and say India is a great market. But when you look at the number of failures that have happened, big failures that have happened, I think I'm not asking anyone to kind of say, well, be a naysayer and say, we won't do any startups. But be very, very practical right now when VCs don't give you money, because they just want to make sure that, if you're one of the 10, how it's not an issue if you're one of the 10, but how you're going to be the one who is going to be top 2 or top 3, basically, and how you're going to scale up. Right now I was coming off this morning from an IN meeting where we look at investments every month, and the fact is that one person is, and again, also for startups, when you take angel money, be very careful. So there was one person who had taken angel money, and at a valuation of 15 crores, and we are, Indian Angel Network, we are angels ourselves. So we really, if we give them another 4 crores, that means even on the 15 crore, the valuation is getting close to a 20 crore. But he obviously would want an up on that stuff. So if he says, I want a valuation of 25 crores and take another 4 or 5 crores, so you are having a post-money valuation of 30 crores, and that becomes too impossible either. Because, for example, Indian Angel Network will not invest more than $1 million. That's one. Plus, they would want about 20%, or so for the investments. So basically, you rule out someone like ourselves. So I think when you are trying to raise funds, be extremely, extremely careful that you don't close your future by getting some money desperately from, some of the other guys. In fact, most of the, smart angel investors will not do that disservice to you. Fine, do the service. I think with that, I'll end my presentation. Any questions, we'll be more than happy to answer.